Our chalice-lighting words come from the Reverend Scott Taylor. We who long for return, who long for repair, gather again to mend the tender strands of connection between each other, the world, and those parts of ourselves buried deep. We begin once more the work of welcome, of forgiveness, of renewing this weary, worn world. Come, friends, a new day, a new story awaits. Welcome to worship this morning.
Now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn a little differently. The words from this hymn come from or are attributed to the poet Rumi, and part of the poem that's not in our hymnal is the words, "Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times." So we're going to start with that. And I and this half of the room, if you please, will keep singing that, and Tony will come in after a few iterations with "Come, come, whoever you are." The rest of you can follow him. So here we go. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000, keep going times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows, whoever you are, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000
Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Diego, where we worship each Sunday in South Bay, in Hillcrest, and online.
Buenos días y bienvenidos a la primera Iglesia Unitaria Universalista de San Diego, donde adoramos cada domingo en South Bay, en Hillcrest y en línea.
My name is Rose Van Oss. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I use the pronouns she and her. A special welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. Please fill out a welcome card in your order of service.
Me llamo Andrea y uso los pronombres, el pronombre ella. Una bienvenida muy especial a todos que están con nosotros por primera vez. Les extendemos la invitación de rellenar el formulario en el orden de servicio.
Our community is a vital, diverse, multi-generational congregation without borders, with a mission to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and to act on our values to help heal the world.
Somos una congregación compuesta de personas de distintas identidades racializadas y culturas, personas de diversas orientaciones sexuales e identidades de género, personas de varias habilidades mentales y físicas.
We are creators of community and compassion, and although we can fall short, we are committed to practicing an affirming welcome to all.
We gather this morning during the High Holy Days, which include Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah, which ended at sundown on October 4th, is the Jewish New Year, celebrated with the sounds of shofars and singing, sweet treats like apples dipped in honey, and if we're lucky, meals shared with loved ones. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement, a chance to set things right, to repair our relationships with each other and with ourselves.
The period between and including these holy days is known as the Days of Awe. During these 10 days each year, practicing Jews and some who, like me, consider themselves both Jewish and Unitarian Universalist, reflect on the year that has passed and our hopes for the year to come. We remember loved ones who have died. We reflect on our values and try to remember who we intend to be. For the injuries we have inflicted, we seek forgiveness. And for those injuries we have experienced, we seek to forgive.
This year, the High Holy Days coincide with the anniversary of the attacks on October 7th, a day of trauma and violence that has resulted in increasing suffering, particularly for the peoples of Palestine, Israel, and Lebanon. We hold in our hearts and minds all those who are suffering from the ravages of war, from famine, forced relocation, oppression, and death. We may come into this space feeling all sorts of things: despair, fear, rage, hopelessness. Whatever you're bringing with you, whatever you're feeling, know that your whole self is welcome here. Together, we'll reflect on the spiritual practices of repentance and repair in the midst of this time.
Modern Jews and Unitarian Universalists have much in common historically, ethically, and ritually. Jewish holidays very often start with the lighting of candles, not unlike the kindling of the chalice and our land acknowledgement candle. Now we will light another candle honoring our commitment to the indigenous peoples of this land.
Con espíritu de reverencia, reconocemos que nos juntamos esta mañana en la tierra de los Kumeyaay, quienes continúan viviendo en todo su territorio. Al emprender este viaje juntos, mantengamos en nuestros corazones y mentes el pueblo Kumeyaay.
In a spirit of reverence, we acknowledge that we gather this morning on the land of the Kumeyaay, who continue to live throughout their territories. May the light of this candle shine for our commitment to the Kumeyaay people and to justice and equity for indigenous people everywhere. Please rise in body or spirit to join us for our church hymn. From all who dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every land. Let beauty, truth
the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Que el amor sea la doctrina de esta iglesia, la búsqueda de la verdad su sacramento y el servicio su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad con libertad y ayudarnos mutuamente en comunidad. A eso aspiramos.
Hello, there we go. Good morning, friends. I'd like to invite any of the children or youth who would like to come up and join me for our time for all ages. Good morning. Good morning, friends. Well, as you're gathering, you may have heard Reverend Kristen and Andrea talk about what we're celebrating today, the Days of Awe. Ooh, that's the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Jewish New Year, and also the Day of Atonement, which is a time when we think about things we've done wrong and say that we're sorry for them. And there are some symbols, you might see them up here, and they're going to come up in our story, so you may want to check them out. This is a shofar. It's a ram's horn, and you blow into it. We're not going to do it with this one today, but you blow into it, and it makes kind of a trumpety sound. And there's also a little ritual that some people do called tashlich. And that's when people go to a big body of water, like maybe the ocean or a lake, and they think about the things they've done wrong, and then they sometimes throw breadcrumbs into the water as a symbol of letting that go after they've said they're sorry for it. And that comes up in our story too, which is called New Year at the Pier, a Rosh Hashanah story. Izzy loves this changing time of year. Some days sunglasses, some days sweaters, apples, honey, the sound of the shofar, and his favorite part of Rosh Hashanah, tashlich. Everyone makes I'm sorry lists before tashlich. Mom is at the patio table writing fast. Miriam is on the grass thinking. Izzy puts a rock on his paper so it won't blow away. He doesn't make a list, he draws pictures. But he does count on his fingers. 1, 2, 3 things he's sorry for. 1, for drawing on Miriam's forehead when she was asleep. 2, for losing Mom's ring at the grocery store. 3, for breaking Mrs. Bickerson's drum, the one he wasn't supposed to touch. Is that it? He wonders. Just 3? Then he remembers there's one more. Ugh. He wishes there weren't. He wishes he could forget. 4, for promising he wouldn't tell his friend Ben's secret and then telling it. On Rosh Hashanah, as soon as they get to the synagogue, Izzy joins his friends playing tag. You're it, says a kid, pointing to Izzy. He runs over to his sister, Miriam. Miriam, he whispers, I'm sorry I drew on your forehead. Oh, that's no big deal, she says. Okay, says Izzy. Miriam looks at her list and then Izzy. I'm not going to call you Big Snot anymore. I'm sorry. I like being Big Snot, says Izzy as he pulls a ribbon from her hair. Izzy, Miriam yells as she stomps on his foot. Hey, Izzy yells. Mom walks up. Peace, kids, please, she says. Izzy looks at his own 2 fingers. This one will be harder. Mom, Izzy says, looking down at his shoes, I'm sorry I lost your ring. Thank you. I know you're sorry. I have something I'm sorry for, too. Izzy's eyes get big. Mom is sorry? I'm sorry for always being on the phone. I'll try not to answer it when you and I are playing. Mom squeezes his hand. Izzy squeezes back. The doors of the synagogue open. It's time to take their seats. When services are over, everyone walks to the beach. Rabbi Neil, Cantor Livia, and all the families. Rabbi Neil says, Tashlich is a time we apologize for things we wish we hadn't done. Tashlik means to throw. We throw away things we don't like or don't need. Tashlik is a cleaning of your heart's closet. A new year, a clean heart. Just this summer, Izzy and Miriam cleaned their toy closet and gave away lots of toys. Now it seems bigger. Sometimes he opens the closet just to see how big it is. They all walk up the pier singing. The melody moves Izzy in a sad, happy kind of way. He feels a part of the wind, a part of the waves, a part of everybody singing. At the head of the pier, everyone crowds around Rabbi Neil and Ben's dad. They put the shofars to their lips and blow. And now it's time. Mom hands them slices of old bread. Izzy rips off a piece and whispers, "This is for drawing on Miriam's forehead." He throws it into the water. "For Mom's ring," he says, tossing another "I'm sorry" into the sea. He breathes the salty air. His heart feels cleaner. Suddenly, Ben is right next to him. "Izzy, I'm sorry I never helped you find your yellow notebook." His notebook? Oh, that's right. Ben didn't help him look for it. Just hearing Ben say he's sorry makes Izzy feel better. "That's okay," he says. He smiles down at the 4 shoes side by side, and then he remembers the 4th thing on his list. Oh, he has to tell Ben. Well, maybe he doesn't have to. Yes, he does. They sit together on a bench looking out to sea. Ben is bouncy and hummy. Izzy is slouchy. Okay, Izzy takes a breath of ocean air. "Ben, I'm sorry I told your secret." "About sucking my thumb?" "Yeah, it was mean. I'm sorry." There's a long silence. He wishes Ben would say something. Finally, Ben says, "Izzy?" "Yes?" "We've been friends for a long time, right?" "Right." "So, because we've been friends for a long time, you're 100% forgiven." "Really? And from now on, I promise to keep all your secrets secret." They toss the pieces of bread out to the fish. Izzy's heart feels as big as the ocean. But what about Mrs. Bickerson? Izzy decides he will talk to her soon. He throws another piece into the sea for Mrs. Bickerson's drum. Ben and Izzy toss the last bits into the wind. Everyone sings one last song, then they slowly walk home with empty bread bags and clean, wide open hearts. The end. Thank you. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed the story, and when we go up to our classes in just a minute, we're going to talk a little bit more about forgiveness and ways that we can say we're sorry. But for now, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to stand up here and help lead the congregation in our affirmation. We'll say it first in English and then in Spanish. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. Somos unitarios universalistas, personas de mentes abiertas, corazones amorosos y manos que dan la bienvenida. And now I invite all the children and youth who'd like to join me and their other leaders on the patio, and we'll head to religious education.
We have a few special announcements this morning. Lay ministers are available after the service on the patio each Sunday. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you'd like to share with someone, they can offer you a listening presence. This morning's lay minister is Melinda Holbein. So Dining for Dollars round 2 is coming. Dining for Dollars is our beloved community building fundraiser where people create different kinds of events. And this year we've created our auction in 2 different parts. And so we want to ask you if you can consider hosting maybe an event at your home, a meal, a hike, a trip to the beach. It could be anything that creates community and offers people an opportunity to gather together. If you'd like to learn more after the service, you can go out to the Dining for Dollars table on the patio, or you can also go onto the website to the Giving tab and pull down to Dining for Dollars. I want to also invite you to join us this upcoming Saturday on October 12th for a day of healing. This is going to be a special morning filled with different kinds of workshops about spiritual practices, things like learning mindfulness and simple living, soul collage, music making, wandering in nature, creative writing, singing meditation, sacred dance, and embodied healing. There'll be childcare available. There'll also be spiritual activities for all ages on the patio. So we invite you to join us, but don't forget to register. The link is on the flyer in your order of service. Now, this Sunday, we are responding to an urgent call from our UU siblings in the Southeast who were directly impacted by Hurricane Helene. The scale of destruction in the wake of Hurricane Helene has been devastating to many communities, deeply impacting some Unitarian Universalist congregations and many UUs throughout the South who've sustained damage or complete loss to their homes. You can help support those communities as they recover from the storm through our generosity offering this morning to the UUA Disaster Relief Fund. The UUA Disaster Relief Fund provides grants to congregations and to Unitarian Universalist members in the wake of natural disasters. This is one vital, important way that we live into our covenant of congregations and support our siblings in the faith. And this Sunday, we have an opportunity to increase our impact. An anonymous and generous donor has offered to match every donation made today up to $1,000. So we hope that you will consider giving from that wide open heart. You can donate this morning here in person by credit card using the dip jars, also by putting a cash or check in the donation boxes. If you need assistance, please raise your hand. Someone can come help you. You can also always donate online, either online or in person at the church's website, firstuusandiego.org. Thank you so much for your care and generosity. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. So I want to acknowledge it looks like we're having some difficulty with our dip jar this morning. I'm so sorry for that inconvenience, but I hope that you can go on to firstuusandiego.org and go to the Giving tab. We hope that you will still contribute, and we'll make sure that our operations team looks into getting those fixed. So sorry for the inconvenience.
Imagine this. On the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, every fall, every year, the people make their peace with anyone they have wronged or slighted or injured in the past 12 months. The task is not to patch things up, smooth things over, reach a compromise, or sweep mistakes and uneasy memories under a rug. The task is not to feel better. The task is ownership. The goal is truth for its own redemptive sake. I did this. I said this to you, and it was wrong. I neglected this. I botched this. I betrayed you thusly. I demeaned you, whether you ever knew it or not. This is the truth which both of us are living. I ask you to forgive me. Imagine how many deep breaths you would need to take. Imagine how many doors you'd have to knock on, how many phone calls you'd have to make, how many letters, how many lunches and coffees, how many awkward moments with your children and your parents, and with strangers, that cashier to whom you spoke sharply. Awkward is irrelevant. The task is not about comfort. It is about truth, about wholeness and holiness, restoration. Imagine this. Someone has been preparing all year to speak with you, to write to you, to ask you a hard question. Perhaps in some way not quite conscious, you have even known this and you have been preparing too. Finally, you answer the door or the phone or open the letter with shaky hands. And there it is, what you thought you'd been longing for but really have dreaded. Someone is asking you for forgiveness. The task is not about comfort. It is about truth. Awkward is irrelevant. You get to choose now. You have to choose whether and how you will participate in restoration. Abandon the pleasant piety that claims knee-jerk forgiveness as the unquestioned moral course. You get to choose which way will be right in this case. Between you as persons and with all your gods, what response will make the world more whole? Imagine something yearns in us to come round right. Something creaky, rusty, heavy, almost calcified within us tries in spite of us and in spite of all our fears and self-deceptions to turn and creak and turn again and come round a little truer. Something in us stretches toward conversion. Imagine healing wholly from within.
So for this part of the service, you will need the index card inside your order of service. So if you don't have an index card and a pen, I want to invite you to raise your hand and an usher will come by and bring one to you. Okay, I see someone over here. Great, I see a few people. So if we can start passing out those index cards and pens. If you're at home, I invite you to find something to write with. So our story this morning began with a family gathered on Rosh Hashanah who were reflecting on the year, and they were writing their list, a list of people who they have harmed and who they needed to seek repair with. So I want to invite us into an opportunity now to take some time to reflect. Who is on your list? So on this index card in your order of service, I invite you to write a few names. You could also draw a few pictures. And please know this list is not, I'm not going to invite you to share it with anyone. This list is for you, for your own heart and mind. We'll have some silence as we reflect, and then some music will come in. Feel free to continue working on your list as the music starts. In front of you is a card with some names or some pictures. And it might be hard to sit with because these names and these pictures represent someone we have hurt, things that have gone unsaid, places where the fabric of relationship is frayed and torn. What do you do with this kind of list? First, I want to invite you to take a moment and to just place your hands on your heart. Feel the weight of the palms of your hands on the center of your chest. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And offer yourself just a moment of compassion. It can feel vulnerable and risky to admit even to ourselves that we are messy and human and fallible, that we have harmed people, sometimes people we love, and we've been harmed. As humans, we hurt one another. Now, as you're willing, I invite you to open your eyes and just take a look around the room. See the people here. Know that every single person in this room has people on their list. We have sometimes failed to live our most deeply held values. We have broken our vows 1,000 times, and our hearts long for repair and for healing. In the Jewish tradition, this is a sacred time of the year. The days of awe from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur is a time for deep reflection, for ritual, for connection with beloveds, for fasting, for atonement. As I was talking about this service with Andrea this morning, she also said this is a time of wrestling with hard truths. Now, in our story this morning, we followed this experience of a family. And before they go to the synagogue for Rosh Hashanah, they spend time in the garden reflecting and making their own lists. And when they arrive for services, they begin to seek out the people who are on their list to offer apologies. Sometimes they're for some everyday things like, I lost something that was important to you. I didn't help you when you needed it. I broke something that I wasn't even supposed to touch. But sometimes there are even deeper hurts in this story. I told your secret. I was mean. I broke your trust. Now, after the service, they engage in this ritual of tashlik. They go out to the pier and they tear off pieces of bread and they toss them into the sea, naming the things that they don't want to carry, the things that they wish they hadn't done, an act of purification, embracing this opportunity to experience clean, wide open hearts. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, this is the time of the year when we often lead services on forgiveness. This is a way that we honor our spiritual roots and our connection to Judaism as a main source of wisdom we draw on as a people of faith, but also to honor the connection of our siblings in the faith who identify as both Unitarian Universalist and Jewish. Now, I wholeheartedly believe that saying a sincere "I'm sorry" is a beautiful and potentially healing act. And sometimes I wonder if we rush to forgiveness. We just want things to be okay, to be patched up, to be less tense. We want someone to absolve us, to tell us that it's okay that we hurt them. And I think that sometimes we miss the opportunity for a deeper and more lasting transformation. So today I want to focus on the spiritual work that comes before the apology, that happens before we go and ask for forgiveness. This is the work of repentance and repair. The main teachings I'll share with you come from a book by the Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg titled On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World. In the introduction, she explains that in Judaism, repentance, forgiveness, and atonement are different processes, but that the highest emphasis is on the work of repentance, and that there's actually steps to this process of repentance that draw back to Maimonides, who was a 12th century philosopher and scholar of Jewish law who created the text, the Mishnah Torah. So Maimonides named 5 steps that I want to share with you, and Rabbi Ruttenberg helped us to understand these steps by exploring them with modern day examples. So step number 1, naming and owning harm. Now this is just a simple acknowledgement of what happened. It's not even yet an apology. It's an I did this and it hurt you. It goes back to our reading from Reverend Victoria Safford, who writes, "The task is ownership. The goal is truth for its own redemptive sake. I did this. I said this to you, and it was wrong. I neglected this, I botched this, I betrayed you thusly, I demeaned you, whether you knew it or not. This is the truth in which both of us are living. We name out loud that we have caused harm." Now, one of the things that's a little tricky about this step is that we actually have to understand the harm that we've caused. I think that this requires maybe a few things from us. One is the willingness to be honest with ourselves and to engage in a process of self-reflection. The other, maybe even more challenging, is to be willing to listen to the person who we have harmed as they tell us how it impacted them, how it affected their well-being. Rabbi Ruttenberg writes, "Even this first step can be incredibly hard and painful. For so many people, this work can trigger our defensiveness, the desire to justify one's actions in order to stave off shame and guilt or humiliation, to attempt to keep our reputation or to not lose our power. It tarnishes our cherished belief that we are always doing good, that we are always helpful." In this first step, naming and owning harm, there's a kind of soul searching that is required for us. It takes humility, the willingness to admit to ourselves we are not always good, we are not always kind, we are not always loving. And it doesn't make us an innately sinful or depraved person. It just makes us human. The ability to bear witness to our own truth, to listen to someone else, even when it is uncomfortable, and to take ownership when we act in ways that hurt others. This is step 1. Step 2 is about starting to change. So if we know that we've created harm, step 2 is saying, I want to take the steps so I don't do it again. I want to be ready to make different choices. And Rabbi Ruttenberg emphasizes that this is a non-negotiable part of the process. We don't get to say, I'm sorry, and to do the same thing again the day after, and the day after, and the day after that. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't always find this easy, right? We have patterns, we have conditioning, we have trauma, we have our own pain, and this can all be barriers to making different choices. This step is about pursuing the support you need in order to make those changes. Maybe it's a daily spiritual practice. Maybe it's a relationship with a therapist. Maybe it's education in a book or some sort of class. Maybe it's spiritual direction, a support group, rehab. So the idea here is that I want to be ready to not make the same mistakes. I'm going to go out, I'm going to pursue the support in order to do that, to grow, to learn, to change these patterns, to see the underlying motivations, and to have support to make different choices in the future. Rabbi Danya Rettenberg says these two steps are are probably the hardest part. And they're things that we're not really trained to do, right? We don't learn these things. I don't know, before I had read this, someone had never like laid out the steps and said, here's the things we need to do to try to repair the harm. Now, the third part is about restitution and accepting consequences. So this is about trying to make the material conditions right. So maybe you harm someone in a way that cost them money. This might mean that you have to pay them back. Maybe you made a mistake that cost someone their reputation. What would you need to do to try to restore that? Maybe you made a mistake in a way, or you harmed someone in a way that was like about oppression or injustice. What steps would you need to take to try to rectify that? She talks about sometimes it's paying costs, sometimes it's something like volunteering for a cause or engaging in justice work. And the second piece of this is being willing to accept the consequences. Sometimes we name and own the harm, and someone says, I don't want to be in relationship with you anymore. Sometimes you lose the job. Sometimes there are other consequences. Are we willing to be so committed to truth, to our own truth, and the truth that someone else shares with us, that we can own those consequences? So only here, as we get to step 4, do we get to the apology. We go to the person and we offer our sincere regret, our sorrow for our actions. We try as much as possible not to justify so we don't create more harm. I really love that Rabbi Danya Rettenberg says here that the whole point of waiting till step 4 is you've taken action first so that when you say the words, they really have some weight behind them. I've already taken steps to try to own my harm, to try to make different choices, to help make this situation better. And now, only now, am I asking you, will you forgive me? And the final step is that you will continue to make different choices. She says that these steps are really about transformation, that we're changed in the process, that we spiritually can grow. And so this work of repair comes when the next time I'm in a similar situation, I make a different choice, a choice that's closer in alignment with my truth and with my values. Now, I've been sitting and wrestling with these 5 steps, really thinking about how have they been alive in myself, in my ministry, in the way I move in the world. And 2 things have emerged, that this is about both accountability and healing. For me, accountability is about knowing that every single one of us is connected in a web of relationship, that this interdependent web we talk about as a source or a part of our faith is not something metaphorical, but real. And that means that the actions I take and the ways I move in the world, they affect you. And sometimes they'll hurt you. And so I think about as accountability as about being willing to learn and to understand that something I've done has hurt and to learn a new way of doing it. But it's also about healing. It's about this pathway to transformation in which we have this opportunity, we embrace this opportunity to live more deeply in our values, to live with integrity, to know that if we have made a mistake or if we even have intentionally harmed someone, we can change. Redemption is possible. We can repair the rifts in our relationships. There's possibility for growth and for greater wholeness. Rabbi Rettenberg shares, the 19th century Hasidic teacher Reb Naaman of Breslov said it this way: if you believe that you can damage, believe that you can fix. If you believe that you can harm, believe that you can heal. So, I think that this work of repentance and repair is challenging. It's hard, but it's also powerful and it's full of possibility. And it's a way of us leaning into greater authenticity and greater loving and caring relationship with one another. So I've been sitting with these steps and I've been reflecting on what does that look like in my personal life. And I've also been reflecting, what does this look like in our collective life, in our collective world? With the escalation of violence, suffering, and oppression for the people of Palestine and Israel, I'm wondering, can these help us navigate this time? Can they help us do these steps only help us heal our interpersonal relationships? Or can they help us heal our communities and our nations? Can they help us address injustice? So as I sit with that, this is the essence of what I am taking to heart. Being willing to listen deeply to people who are hurting and suffering, to learn how to be with messy, painful truths, to seek to identify the root causes of harm, to inquire, to self-reflect, are there ways that I participate in this? And to take action to speak the truth publicly in order to change our collective actions, and to be willing to change my own behavior as well. And to continue to call our communities and call our nations into an embodiment of our deepest held values. Perhaps these are the same skills that we need to heal ourselves, our communities, our nation. May we be the ones who are brave enough and vulnerable enough to engage in the work of repentance and repair. Blessed be.
Hashivenu is a song about coming back to who you want to be, coming back to the divine. And you can hear in this song the struggle, so feel free to wail a little as you sing if you want. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing Hashivenu twice through. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Vena Shuva, Vena Shuva, Kadesh, Kadesh, Yameinu Kekideh. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Vena Shuva, Vena Shuva, Kadesh, Kadesh, Yameinu Kekideh.
Please be seated. This week I came upon this poem posted online, originally by Adrienne Rich. My heart is moved by all that I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who age after age perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. This work we've been talking about repentance and repair, is about that reconstituting of the world, of putting in those little pieces that will help us become more whole. Now, this poem was shared by the Unitarian Universalist Association, in which they added this note. In a world shaken by so much loss and destruction, Adrienne Rich's words point us to an important truth. While the weight of what has been broken can feel overwhelming, healing doesn't rest in extraordinary hands alone. It lives in the quiet, persistent work of those who, despite the odds, work to rebuild the world piece by piece, heart by heart. What is yours to rebuild in the midst of all that has been lost? So I'm hoping that this week what you might take with you is this question: what is yours to rebuild? What is one action you can commit to, personal or collective, to help heal piece by piece, heart by heart? So I hope that you'll take that with you. It might also be something to share with each other after the service, to continue to connect and talk about how might you take those steps to repair those relationships on your list, to engage with the steps that are needed to also help engage with the repair of the world. Let us take our next faithful steps towards healing. Blessed be.
And our closing hymn is Olam Chesed. Please rise in body or in spirit. The easy part is yadadai, 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 dai. So if you can sing that, you can sing all the refrains in this hymn. And the words Olam Chesed Yibaneh mean we build the world from love. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Here we go. Yadadai, 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 dai. And again. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, 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 dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, 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 dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, 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 dai. Now we'll sing in English. I will build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 dai. And you must build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 dai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, 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 dai, then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 dai. Olam Chesed, one more time. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, 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 dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, 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 dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, 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 dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Last time. Yadadai, 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 dai.
Let us go forth and let us build this world from love. May we be blessed with a good and sweet new year, made more whole by our actions, and blessed with love and liberation for all. Shana Tova.